Alcoholism is often considered as a social stigma and a taboo, a behavioral problem, a moral issue in many communities and societies across the world. But what we fail to understand is that this actually is a medical problem. In today's episode, we are going to discuss alcoholism and mental health with Roy Tillis, who is the certified life coach, certified 12-step consultant, recovery coach, Reiki master, internationally credentialed alcohol and drug counselor from USA. This has been a very informative podcast, and there have been many takeaways for anyone who is a victim of drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and also for the families who are struggling silently. I hope you like this episode and you make it a point to share with that friend of yours who might find this useful and benefit from this. Hello, Roy. Thank you so much for joining me today on Human Library Podcast, the mental health series. And I'm so grateful that you took out time in doing this conversation with me. And I'm really looking forward to this.
Thank you for inviting me, Nazneen, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you as well.
I was actually going through your story, through your relation with alcohol and how you dealt with the problem yourself and were able to overcome it. So, the first question that comes to my mind is that in cultures where alcohol is celebrated and it's normal, how does a person understand that this is now becoming a problem? It's becoming harmful and he or she is getting actually addicted to it. Are there some emotional or psychological triggers that show that this is now becoming a coping mechanism instead of a casual habit?
That's a pretty interesting question. So, in cultures where alcohol is acceptable, and today in many cultures, marijuana use is acceptable because it's legal in many parts of the world. One of the first indicators that it might be becoming a problem is that when the individual's alcohol or drug use is starting to become noticed by and a problem for the people around them. So that's the first indicator. When your family members, when your friends, when your co-workers at work start to say, hey, you know what? You had a little bit too much last night. Hey, you know what? Last night you said or you did something that wasn't cool. Hey, last night you were stumbling or last night you were slurring. So that's one of the first indicators is that people around you notice that there's something abnormal in your consumption and they bring it to your notice. And when I say abnormal, for example, if the norm is for people to go out and have 2 or 3 drinks at a social event and you're having 5 or 6, doesn't mean you had a fight, doesn't mean you misbehaved, doesn't mean you stumbled, but it was just a visible indicator to the people around you. Hey, that's a little out of the ordinary. So that's the first indicator, is that it's brought to
Right.
your attention.
Right. The human tendency is such that it is not a problem until it starts affecting you badly, right? Until the boundaries are crossed, it's not a problem. So let's say we start from that point. If someone has brought it to your notice, then what is the first thing that an individual should do?
So let's look at the reality. The reality is that when it's been brought to your notice, the first reaction is defensiveness. No, no, no.
Yeah.
It's defensive. I didn't drink that much. Oh, it was my birthday. That's why I had an extra one.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And in any case, I wasn't, yeah, okay, so I had a little extra, but I didn't do anything. That's all I did. No, I just had a couple extra compared to everyone else.
Mm.
So the first normal reaction is defensiveness. That itself, to a clinician, from a clinical standpoint, that's a red flag. Why is the person defending? Someone else would have said, wow, I didn't realize, honey, that I had had 5. I didn't even realize. I guess I got carried away. So 90% of the population that consumes alcohol will do it within the normal parameters. Okay. But are there 10%, and I can get into that later, who are abnormal? And those are the ones that usually get defensive. So the second thing, so that's the reality, is how people react. The second is, what should one do? Again, the 90% of humanity would say, wow, thanks so much for letting me know. That's not going to happen again. And these people will live the rest of their lives. They won't go more than 2 or 3. They will cut down, they'll
Yeah.
control it, they'll be aware of it. But the 10% of people who have the potential to become substance dependent, right now they might be just abusing it a little bit. Would first be defensive, then they would try to cut back. They would get angry if someone brought it to their attention, angry or upset. They might even feel guilty the next morning. Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And as it becomes more progressive, they might even need to drink the next morning or smoke a joint just to chill out from last night's effects. What they should do is take action. Oh my God, I didn't realize. In a perfect world, the first time a cop pulled me over for speeding, what I should have done was stayed within the speed limit.
Yeah.
The truth is, I think I'm on the Autobahn every time I'm on the I-95 driving from New York to Florida.
Yeah. So, what exactly is wrong with these 10 people? Are there some underlying psychological, mental issues, physical issues? Scientifically, why is it that only some people get affected, or because of this they become defensive? Are there any underlying issues with these people?
So there are two factors to this, or three factors. One is emotional, one is mental, and one is physical. These are the three factors that are operative. So throughout history, there have been people who have consumed a lot more than other people, excessively. And that excessive consumption has led to problems. It's led to wars, led to empires going bankrupt, it's led to accidents and fights and divorces and hospitalizations and jail times. And historically, till about maybe 200 years ago, alcoholism, other addiction was either looked as something moral. The religious people would say, you are a sinner, this should not be done. Or it would be looked at as poor behavior. It was a moral issue, right and wrong. It's wrong to do this. It was a behavioral issue. This is not the way to behave. Okay. And it was looked upon as weak will. Why can't we just drink like the rest of us and have two and be happy? So for thousands of years, this was the way society looked at it. Weak will, moral depravity, poor behavior. The first change came in 1778 when Dr. Benjamin Rush, who was one of the original signers of the US Declaration of Independence. He was the guy that said this limited response to the drug alcohol by a certain number of people is a medical issue. He said, just like the whole world eats sugar, but only some people become diabetic, a small minority. He's saying it's similar, it's a medical issue. He didn't know what it was, but it knew that these people are different. The second thing was in 1849, Swedish doctor, Dr. Magnus Huss, HUSS, he actually coined the term chronicus alcoholismus, which was chronic alcoholism, and also said that it is a abnormal reaction to the substance by a limited percentage of the population. And finally, in 1925 in New York City, an American psychiatrist called Dr. William Silkworth, Princeton graduate, New York Medical School, neuropsychiatrist. This guy treated over 55,000 people in his life, and he noticed two common elements that when patients would be admitted for alcohol poisoning or for acute intoxication, he would detoxify them, give them some medication, give them a intravenous drip, give lots of fluids, water, and 1 week later say, okay, you're good, don't drink, please. Doesn't agree with you. And in a short while, the patients would be back. And he developed a 2-question survey. The first question was obviously, what happened? Dude, I just treated you for alcoholism and released you from my hospital. What happened? And 50% of the patients would say something like, Doc, I left the hospital. Everything was great. I cracked this big deal. So we had a drink to celebrate. The other 50% was said, I left the hospital. Life sucked. My family didn't come back. I was so depressed. And my mind said, have a drink. So he saw this. He said, oh my God, I have just discharged you from being treated for alcoholism. And if your mind has convinced you that it's okay to go back and drink again, this is an indication of a mental problem. And then he asked the second question. Okay, even if it's a mental problem, what are you doing back in my hospital? And all 100% of the patients said, we don't know, doc, but once we started to drink, we couldn't stop. In a few
Yeah.
days, we lost control, the quantities went up. So he said, like diabetes, there's some physical indicator, something is happening in this person's body. And when they take a drink, the body craves more. So he called it a mental and physical illness. And it was only in 1955, which was almost 30 years after he first propounded this opinion, that the World Health Organization, the American Medical Organization, finally accepted, yes, it's an illness. So you can go to Google and you can type in the letters DSM 303.9, and that will give you the medical definition of alcoholism. And because it is primarily mental, the mind first says have a drink and then the body reacts, is classified as a mental illness, and it's a book called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Illnesses. So first and foremost is mental and physical. That's part one of your answer. The second part of your answer is emotional. You see, all human beings, we have three basic instincts. One is a survival instinct. To survive, we must eat. To eat, we need money. For that, we must work or steal or beg or borrow or be landed gentry. Okay. And when we have the money, we feel good and then we eat. The second is a social instinct, to be friends with people and to get recognition from people. Wow, good job. And when that instinct is fulfilled, again, we feel good. And the third instinct is sex and relationships. To relate with someone, to get into a relationship, to procreate, to have or just have fun. And when that's fulfilled, we feel great. Now, if for whatever reason that is hurt or threatened, okay, now I start to get emotional. If you get the promotion instead of me, I worked so hard and he got the promotion. Survival instinct affected. Social instinct affected. Everybody knows how he worked. How did you get the promotion? Sex instinct affected. The girls are going to date the guy who's the supervisor and not me. So when those emotions are out of whack, 90% of the planet will go home and they will talk to their support system, their families, their friends. Yeah, so and so happened. It's not fair. They'll moan and complain and then they'll get on with life. They change their job or change their attitude. But 10% of the people will do that, but will also have a drink. And then the drink provides an emotional solace, a solution. I feel good. It changes the state of the mind, and you start to be forgiving. Okay, let it be. His uncle owns the company. That's why he got the promotion. You become generous.
Yeah.
So it's a feel, think, act formula. Something happens and I feel angry or I feel upset, and I think I want to feel better, and then I act. Now, look, I don't know when. Like many people, again, you specifically asked in cultures where alcohol is accepted. In my particular family, alcohol is accepted. I come from a mixed background. My father's family is Christian, my mother's family is Hindu. Both of them were dental surgeons. In both families, alcohol is part of the culture. My parents would come home from work. Dad would have two drinks. Mom would have one drink. My mom just died in January. But she died one drink every evening, weekends they'd have a whole bunch of doctors and dentists over at a party. So it was part of the culture. So in a culture where it's acceptable, I was introduced to alcohol at a young age. If I was sick, my Hindu grandmother would give me 1 teaspoon of Feni. She's from Goa. My Christian grandmother will give me a teaspoon of brandy. Cultural. When you're 11, 12, you get introduced to shandy. It's not real beer. It's mostly lemonade. It's cultural. And so I would drink with the boys when I got into college and had a few beers here and there. But on one particular day, something negative happened. Maybe my boss yelled at me. Maybe my girlfriend fought with me. Maybe I got something cut from my paycheck. Something happened. And on that particular evening when I had a drink, that particular evening, the alcohol had a different reaction on me. It solved that emotional problem. It made me feel little better, and my mind remembered that. And then as I went through life, anytime I got into a negative situation, mind would say, have a drink and then we'll see. So, and the other stuff is environmental, that can happen to anybody. Whether you're an alcoholic or not, people will drink when negative stuff happens. Lose a job, have an accident, have a divorce. That's par for the course. But this 10% of people, the reaction is different. And the last part of my answer is why they're different. And over years, through research, it has been discovered that the this small percentage of people, there's actually an enzyme deficiency. The body does not process all the alcohol. You know, when we were in the seventh grade, we all learned that when we eat any food, the body produces some enzymes and
Yeah.
amino acids and vitamins and so on is extracted. So whenever someone takes a drink of alcohol, some enzymes are released and the alcohol is converted from alcohol to a basic carbohydrate. I'm not going to go into chemistry lecture here. But in
Mm.
this small percentage, a little bit in the of the alcohol remains in the form of, get this, nail polish remover, acetone stays inside.
Yeah.
That starts to damage certain organs, liver and pancreas.
Okay.
That's where the enzymes are
Okay.
produced. So there's
Yeah.
actually an enzyme deficiency. 9 people have a drink, it becomes carbohydrate. When I have a drink, some becomes carbohydrate, little remains in acetone. The acetone sets up a craving for more of the same. So that's my
Mm.
answer to you on that fact.
I have also seen some people who have been drinking a lot throughout during their lives, but suddenly one day they wake up and decide that, okay, now I'm not going to have even a single drink. And then from that point until they die, they don't drink, like they don't have even a single drink after
Yeah.
that. So what happens? Why are these people different?
So we basically can see that drinkers, we see them divided broadly into about 3 classes. One is you can take it or leave it alone. You give my grandmother a glass of wine, she'll take one sip and then she'll just put it down and
Mm.
she just took it to satisfy you. She doesn't really care. Take it, don't take it, doesn't make a difference. That's type one. Then we have a certain type of hard drinker. They may have the habit badly enough where they might even need some medication or hospitalization to get them off it. But if a sufficiently strong reason becomes operative, falling in love, change of environment, warning of a doctor, this person can also stop or even moderate because they have not developed an enzyme deficiency. I have friends I went to college with who drank like me, got into trouble like me. Anybody would have said these guys are totally alcoholic. One guy got a job in Saudi Arabia. He doesn't drink 11 months of the year. Boom, just like a switch, turns it off. Comes to India for
Mm.
1 month and he parties a little bit. I got another friend, again, partied heavily with me, got married one day to a girl from a community that does not drink. Overnight, he just stopped. He said, no, I love this girl. Their community doesn't drink. My relationship is more important than a glass of alcohol. Quit.
Mm.
I've got other people that have had health issues, enlarged liver, or had an accident under influence and broke some bones, and the doctor said, you better stop, and these people would stop. And then there's the third type who are the alcoholic, who may start off as social drinkers, may become hard
Yeah.
drinkers, but at some
Yeah.
stage they cross one invisible line
Right.
where they lose that control. Now, genetic factors indicate that 75% of the patients that come into our clinics and to our rehabs have a family history of addiction. There's a
Okay.
parent or a grandparent with alcohol, drugs, gambling, some addictive factors there. So there's sufficient evidence that there's genetic predisposition. But 25% of our patients have no family history at all, but they have overused that substance until the physiology of the body internally has changed and the enzyme
Mm.
deficiency developed. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, of course. But then let's talk about the hard drinkers who are not, who want to overcome this, but they are not able to, or struggling with this problem. You rightly mentioned earlier that our society still sees this as a taboo.
Yeah.
It sees as a behavioral problem, and it judges actually the person who is an awkward drinker. Let's put it that way. What is the role of family in these situations? How can they be empathetic towards this person?
Yeah.
And how can they lead this person to a direction where he or she can at least see that this is a problem and I need to get rid of this addiction?
So the first thing I encourage the family to do is to get an understanding, okay, that the person, the loved one, actually has an illness. Now there are 4 diagnostic questions that any family can find out whether their loved one has a problem or not. Number one, has the person tried to? It's called the CAGE test, CAGE, and I hope all your
Okay.
listeners can make note of this. The first is the loved one trying to cut down or cut it out.
Mm.
And you hear the statements, okay, next time I'll drink less. Okay, I'll stop for Shravan or
Yeah.
Lent or, Ramzan
Yeah.
or whatever it is. Are they trying to
Yeah.
cut down? That's C. The second diagnostic question is A, angry. Do they get
Yeah.
angry if you talk to the boss, you drank too much last night? And, oh, what do you mean me? Look at your pop. He drank even more than me. And second is anger.
Yeah.
That's that
Yeah.
defensiveness I talked about.
Mm.
The third is G for guilt.
Mm.
They feel really bad. They bring all nice presents home for you and the kids, all the nonsense they did before. And the third is E for eye opener. If they're starting to have an early morning drink or a smoke or whatever. So
Mm.
if your family member has answered even one of these four questions, look out. There may be a problem developing. If they answer 2 out of 4, it certainly looks that they have a problem. And if they
Mm.
answer 3 or 4, they definitely have a problem. So that is the first thing to see if that problem exists. The second is, what is the problem? So in simple terms, the medical definition, okay, is it is a primary, progressive, chronic illness which is characterized by a mental preoccupation, an adverse physical reaction, and
Mm.
continued use despite consequences. Let me break that down. I want the families to understand. It is primary. The drinking itself is a problem. It's not because his mother died when he was 16 or because he didn't do it. All those
Yeah.
are contributive factors. But the primary problem is the drinking itself, which causes other problems. Second thing is progressive. Over a period of time, it becomes worse. When the guy was
Mm.
18, he was probably drinking 2 beers. At 28, he's drinking 6 beers and half a bottle of booze. When he's 30, it progresses. The third thing is it's chronic. Given the right circumstances, the person will stop falling in love, change of environment, warning of a doctor. But if untreated, that will come back. Chronic, it comes back. Your people have chronic arthritis, and that means it doesn't go
Yeah.
away. So it's primary, progressive, and chronic. Okay. And it is manifested by a mental preoccupation. So the mind starts to think, oh, I didn't drink for 2 months. When can I drink?
Mm.
How much can
Yeah.
I drink? With whom will I drink? What will I drink? How to drink without getting caught? How to drink and still walk straight and talk straight? It's a mental preoccupation. An adverse physical reaction. Most people have 2 or 3 and they say, that's it, boss. I can feel this. The
Mm.
adverse reaction to someone who's an alcoholic, the body will crave more. The mind says, have two. The body says, keep drinking. It's like someone who has diabetes. He can't say, hey, it's been 10 years since I had sugar. Chalo, let me eat some doodh pedas today and my blood sugar won't go up. It has to happen. It's a physical reaction. And it has continued use despite adverse consequences. So despite the loss of jobs, the accidents, the broken relationships, the financial trouble, the legal trouble, they continue to use. So the family can see the CAGE test is their problem. Understand that this is a medical illness. Now, the family does not cause the illness. I'm drinking because of you. You didn't cause it. It's the 3 C's. You're
Mm.
not the cause. You can't control it. I'll water down all his drinks. I'll pour out half the booze, replace it with water. You didn't cause it. You can't control it. And you can't cure it. Like diabetes, there's no cure. Now, it can be arrested, it can be stopped. What can the family do? So, there are two approaches the family can take. One is to seek professional help. Okay. And I don't know where your audience is, but in India, it's very limited. There are many fine psychiatrists and psychologists who would treat addiction. There are a lot of rehabs, but there are very few that are really quality rehabs. Most of them are just like elaborate jails. They have bars on the doors, and there's no real treatment. That people are not treated too well over there. And as professionals, unless one actually has a love for this field and wants to help addicts, we are horrible patients. We don't listen to our doctors and our counselors and our therapists. We keep trying to beat the game. We lie to them. We don't tell them the whole truth. So they're not very welcome patients at
Yeah.
clinics. But there are some good practitioners in all over the world. In India, there are a few. And so the family can seek the professional route, get a talk to a professional, get an evaluation done, engage in counseling and therapy. He may or may not need a medical detox. And when I say he, is he or she. In India, about
Yeah. Yeah.
30% of the alcoholics are women. Government of India survey, Times of India, February 19th, 2019. You can look it up. That was the last Government of India survey. There's 85 million or 8.5 crore untreated addicts in India. So one is the medical. They may need a hospital detox. They may need an inpatient rehab in a safe environment for a little while, and they may need individual therapy or outpatient. Simultaneously, the family can have family counseling, supportive counseling. That's one route. The second route is to use a voluntary organization called Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous started in 1935 in the USA. It's not supported by any government or any religious org. It's completely independent, and the members themselves support themselves. They're just people who've solved the drinking problem. They have a small formula of how to recover, and they voluntarily get together every evening and they have these meetings. Somebody stand up and tell their story, and they say, hey, this is how it was. Here's where I fell. Here's how I screwed up my life. This is what I did to get better. And now I'm 5 months, 5 years, 25 years sober. So these are the two approaches that family can take, the most successful. People who combine therapy and the 12-step movement, alcoholics are together, 65% recovery rate. And this is as per the Cochrane report of 2020. It's not that there are not other roads. I have known people who've got religious. They found God, they got sober. I've got people who went to doctors and took some medications and never drank again. I've known people who did only therapy. Yes, there are other routes, but the most successful is the combination of these two, in my experience. And I've been doing this professionally for 30 years.
So, one question that came to my mind while you were answering the previous one, when I had an episode with one of the therapists, he suggested that usually for therapy, the person who is actually seeking the therapy, he needs to be ready for it. He needs to be willing for it. Only then the therapy can work. But in my understanding, is a hard drinker usually ready? How I understand that it might not be easy to convince him to get into a therapy, to get into a rehab. So, what can be done at that stage?
Okay. So there is no one size fits all cookie cutter answer because each case is different. But there's an expression that we use in English which says, you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink. Correct?
Yeah.
But there's a rider to that saying. You can take to the horse to the water, and if he doesn't want to drink, tie him up and make him thirsty where he wants to drink. So a good therapist will meet with the family, will hear the whole case, but he's not ready. So between the therapist and the family, we are going to strategize. What will make him ready? Okay. What are the leverage points? Is he afraid of losing access to his children? Is there a job on the line? Is there a health issue? Is there a money issue? We have to find out. A good therapist will talk to the family and find out what is that point that will do the leverage. And then the horse will be ready to drink the water. I had one case in the US where the guy was a pretty hardcore alcoholic. And finally, his sons grew up and they left the house and said, hey, Dad, we got news for you. You're getting married, but you're not invited to the wedding. Then they had kids. Hey, Dad, this is letting you know you're a grandfather, but you will never see your grandchildren unless you get sober and stay sober for at least 3 years. He wanted to see his grandchildren, so he got into treatment. So there is no easy answer. Must meet with the family, find out what are the leverage points, who are the influencers, who is the person he'll listen to. He or she may not listen to the spouse, but maybe they'll do it for an elderly person in the family. Maybe they'll do it for a school best friend. Maybe they'll do it for a teacher that they respect. We don't know, but it's a little bit like detective work in those first couple of sessions, but we can find that.
Yeah. So, in your experience with Alcoholics Anonymous, what is the most transformational story that you have witnessed that could be a testimonial to recovery as well as an improved mental health?
Every single person, every single patient that I have sent to AA and has done their 12 steps and have recovered, every single one is a testimonial to success. Number one, they have got physically sober. Number two, they've got emotionally sober. Negative things happen to people, they don't lose their stuff. They don't yell and scream and break furniture. They deal with it in a mature manner. Which means, number three, mental faculty has returned. When these three things are in place, then comes the social recovery. The family gets reassembled. They get happy to do that. So it's physically sober, emotionally sober, mentally sober, social recovery through family, through friends, contributing to society. Every single case that recovers is a success story. Yes, there are people who will go even to AA. And then, no, I don't know. Because it is work. There are 12 steps. And someone has to do is, look, if you go and see a therapist, you're still going to have to do work. Therapist will give you exercises to do at home to regulate your mood or change your behavior or whatever it might be. And it's the same in AA. There's some little homework to be done, 12 actions to be taken. And every single case it's a joy. Now, how do I use that? When I get new patients and I say, listen, I can do so much with you. That's all. But if you never want to come back to me as a patient, you must go to these AA meetings, meet these guys, and then my greatest joy is introducing them to successful former patients who have now recovered in AA. And so every case is an inspiration.
So, when someone has become sober and when someone has already achieved the target of limiting himself to alcohol, what are some of the habits or routines that you would suggest or he or she should imbibe in his or her life
Okay. So
to maintain that?
So I just want to clarify one thing. Whether they come to me for addiction treatment or whether they go to AA, the goal is abstinence. It's not, okay, now I can have 2 drinks every evening. You can't unwind that clock. It's like taking a lemon and cutting it and squeezing it. You can't put it back together again. Okay. So it's an abstinence model. So what are some of the things that I have, both as a professional, which I advise clients and what has been reported to me by my clients who have been successful in AA is the first thing is to get which means to start to sleep a regular amount. Doesn't matter if you sleep at midnight every day, but then sleep at midnight every day. Try to get 6 to 7 hours of sleep. Try and regulate your food habits so you're eating healthy. Exercise is very important. Okay. And good relationships with others. It is recommended that even after you recover in AA, you continue to attend those meetings, at least one a week, for 2 reasons. One is you can be a sober example to new people coming in. Wow, see, this guy has done it. Second is you can be of help to someone else. Someone might ask you, hey, how did you do it? Can you mentor me? Can you explain to me how to do these 12 steps? And the third is, it's a reminder. You sit there and you say, oh my God, new people are coming in and they're still getting into car crashes and divorce courts, jails and hospitals. And then the sad part is you will occasionally meet people who have stayed sober for 5, 10, 15 years and then they relapse, because relapse does happen. So that's another reminder that this illness doesn't go away. It's like diabetes, chronic. And it comes back, you'll go back to hospital. So that's what has been reported. Now, I teach my clients about taking a daily dose, DOSE. So, you see, the brain naturally manufactures 4 feel good chemicals. D for dopamine, when we do a task, organize the cupboard, wash the dishes, mow the lawn, finish it, feel good, dopamine. O is oxytocin. When we outreach, when we hold a child's hand, when we pat a dog, when we give someone a hug, oxytocin is produced and we feel good. S is serotonin. When we do service, open the door for someone walking into a restaurant, help someone put their bags in a car. And E is exercise. Go for a walk, ride a bike, have a swim. So I encourage my clients to get in this daily dose. Every day, try and do these 4 things. DOSE. Dopamine, do a task. Oxytocin, outreach someone. Serotonin, do some service. Endorphins, do some exercise.
You talk about relapses, right, in this answer. So, and relapses can be very depressing because a person has come so far, and again, probably it's like getting back into that wicked cycle again. So, does it become easier for the person to get out of that cycle once he falls back into it because he knows the process, or how is it for such people?
So, relapse is not only depressing, it's also dangerous, Nazneen, because what happens with the drug alcohol, it is basically a brain sedative. It starts to put the brain to sleep. Okay. You have 1 drink, it starts to affect your verbal skills, or 2 drinks, or 3 drinks. Then you start to talk nonsense. You're flirting with the wrong person, you're abusing the boss's wife, stuff like that. You have couple more drinks, then your motor skills get affected. You're bumping into the corners of tables or walls, and you're waking up the next morning with bruises. You have a few more drinks, and then your voluntary reactions get affected. You pass out. Somebody punches you, you don't even fight back, and you just pass out. So, if you do that and you go into a relapse, imagine operating a motor vehicle under the influence. So, it's not just depressing, it's dangerous, and people do die. Now, for someone who is in the relapse, we as professionals, we need to work with the family to try and do an intervention, tell them, okay, he's gone to, has he passed out? Okay, that's fine. Let me be there when he wakes up. And very often I have been flown by clients to another city. I've stayed in a nearby hotel, and then they'll call me, okay, he's finally passed out. He's passed out. Then I sneak into the house and I'm sitting like a ghost in the bedroom, waiting for his eyes to open. And then, oh my God, my counselor's here. So usually that contact is enough, to have the guy break, oh my God, I relapsed, this, that. Then we can start the process of what happened. And it's like being a detective, you see, because when you finish the treatment, we ask the client to do certain things: sleep on time, eat healthy, do exercise, go for 1 a.m. meeting, build a sober circle. Don't unnecessarily put yourself. Look, there's nothing wrong with being around alcohol. There's nothing wrong with that, but be very clear. I mean, you go to somebody's house who's a diabetic, they won't say no sugar for you because I am diabetic. They just won't have it. So someone who has fully recovered, you can have booze in your house, you can kiss a girl who's drinking. If you have recovered, it's not a problem. But if you're not doing the things that have been outlined between the therapist and the AA, that you do these things, you stay. So we do some investing. Acha, you were not doing this. Oh, you stopped doing that. You were doing this. You know,
Hmm.
uh, okay, let's get back
Okay.
into treatment and do a short term intervention of maybe a week or 10 days. Fix the holes. It's like if your umbrella is leaking in the rain, find out where the holes are and then start putting some scotch tape on it so the
Yeah.
leak is stopped. And then eventually
Yeah.
get a new umbrella, get a new attitude.
We spoke about the social stigma around drinking, right? And I think it's very important because I personally believe that an evolved society is something that doesn't push its people or the people of that community towards its periphery, but then it tries to improvise it. It includes everyone. So, how can we build a safer place for everyone in this society, especially the people who are struggling with alcohol and drug abuse?
One of the reasons I'm so successful is because I don't get involved in political and religious answers to some of the social stigmas. I would say it would be wonderful if religious leaders of all communities, because India is a very religious society till now. And I'm assuming we're talking to people in India.
Yeah, yeah,
Otherwise, it would be Sprechen Sie Deutsch, which I'm not very good at.
yeah,
So it would be wonderful if religious leaders of all communities are able to understand and accept this is an illness. Let's help these people. It would be wonderful if churches and temples and mosques and gurdwaras say, hey, you know what? We'll give you one room in our place. Why don't you have your AA meeting over there? Now, many of these institutions that I've mentioned, churches, mosques, gurdwaras, and temples, many of them actually have social service offices where they are helping the families of the alcoholic. They're providing food and medicine and school fees and counseling for women who are getting battered by alcoholics and children that are suffering. They're doing it. So the religious institutions are already recognizing it's a problem and they're helping one part of the victims. But the person who's drinking is also a victim of an illness. Like I said
mm,
right at the start, as a society, we view it as bad behavior. We view it as a moral failing. We view it as weak will. I would love for religion to also expand their view and say, what can we do for this guy? We'll
yeah,
pray, but can you guys do some actual counseling or stuff like that? That's on my wish list. The other
yeah,
thing I would like to see, it's a wish list, and remember, I'm not making political statements, is that in 1993, which was probably 30 years ago or something, I wanted to become a specialist in this field, 1993. So I did my research in India, and there was not one single university that was offering the 2 year diploma course in addiction counseling educationally. It was only available in US, Canada, England, Australia, and South Africa. So for me to study addiction, and become a professional. I had to do what I needed to do, and I went overseas. And it's not that you sit in class and you study. After the thing, there's also a 1 to 2 year internship where you have to actually work in a rehab for 2 years and you do 4,000 hours, and then you can sit for the exam. So when I made a decision to come back to India in 2017 and take early retirement, to my shock and dismay, I discovered that there's still not a single school in India to train people for this field. I gave you the numbers and please look it up. Times of India, February 19, 2019, the last government survey on addiction in India, 8.5 crore, which is 850 lakh or 85 million identified alcoholics. And you know, in India, everything is underreported.
Yeah.
Not one single school, non political. So
Yeah.
I'm only wishing. Who knows?
Yeah.
Before I die, maybe I'll be able to help start one. So, as a society, we can do that. I'll give you a case. The World Health Organization, the Indian Medical Association, everybody accept addiction is an illness, alcoholism is an illness. But the portfolio of alcoholism does not come under the health ministry in India. It comes under Ministry of Social Justice because alcoholics, after they drink, are causing social problems for the families. So my wish is that we can make a couple of changes.
Yeah, I understand. And also, I was thinking, sir, that we usually say that prevention is better than cure, but then people need to be first educated that
Correct.
drinking can cause a problem because for you it was a passion to help the alcoholics and addicts. But let's say for a normal teenager who is about to, have a couple of drinks with his friends, he should know what consequences this can bring to him.
So
And without that knowledge,
just one clarification. I didn't roll out of bed one day and say, come on, let's do this. I had a very successful career. I was working in the film industry in Bombay. I was a production manager.
yeah,
And I launched a young unknown fellow in the TV serial Circus in the movie Raju Ban Gaya Gentleman. So I had a very successful career. So why did I choose it? I myself had my own personal problems with alcohol and drugs. And by age 28, I was broke, I was unemployed, I was single, and I was sleeping on my grandmother's couch. And that's when I personally got sober. I got the help of a doctor, a psychiatrist in Bombay, Dr. Nani, and some friends who shall remain nameless. And I got sober. And when I was sober and I'm working in the film industry and I'm seeing so many people having this problem and people are approaching me for help. It came to a point where I'm working 8 hours and I'm spending 4 hours helping people. And that's when I was motivated to do this. Now, what can we do about it? Now, there are a few places where people like me are invited to come and speak. And in fact, I'll be in Bombay next week. And on Wednesday and on Friday, I've been invited to give a lecture at St. Xavier's College. But that's already college level. People have already been partying for 3 to 5 years in college. In the USA, where I lived for 25 years, my son was born there and went to school there. From the fifth grade, sixth grade onwards, every week there would be one class on body shaming, on internet addiction, on alcohol, drug use, on domestic violence. Every week a different one class a week. So a lot of education happens right from the school level. It's not going to stop someone from using. It must still use. But at least that norm is in place already. That would be great. You know, last year, Tata Institute of Social Sciences invited me to speak to their group of social work students. So there are a few institutes in India which are open-minded enough to do this. A cathedral school in Bombay invited me to speak to the 10th standard and to the 12th standard kids who are about to finish school. So there are a few institutes in India that are doing it. I think few. I've named 3.
yeah,
We have 1.5 billion people here. So
right.
it would be nice if they could do something. But then again, in order to provide that education, you need people to be trained in that. So then you need the school to be started to train counselors.
Getting into therapy and getting help, counseling, or reaching out to people like you uh, is still like a sense of privilege. Privileged people can do this. There is a big number of people who are underprivileged
Yes.
economically. And it is that section of the society who is struggling very badly with drug abuse and alcohol. Okay, I don't know if this can be a political, non-political answer for you. What can be done for these people?
So I don't have an easy answer to that. Okay. I'm used to a certain lifestyle. And in order for me to support my lifestyle, I need to charge my professional fees accordingly. So that's answer A, that
Yeah.
yes, I'm available to a certain segment of society for a price. However, me and several of my colleagues in this field, and they're going to shoot me for saying this on a public interview, but several of us very quietly, without making it public, if someone does call me and they can't afford my fee, there's a certain amount of work that we do. In this field, you never do pro bono. It's never free. You have to pay something. I don't care if you pay 50 rupees a session or 100 rupees a session. You have to pay something, never free. One free, go to Alcoholics Anonymous. That's free. But me personally and several of my colleagues in the field, we make a decent income with people who are privileged and are able to afford us. But several of us do spend a certain segment of our time making our services available at a very nominal cost to the underprivileged. Now, again, start the school, Nazneen, and let's get more qualified
Yeah.
therapists out there.
So, for my listeners who are listening to you right now and who are silently struggling with this problem, or they know that a loved one is struggling to find a way out, is there a message of hope from your end for them?
Absolutely. Addiction is 1000% treatable. You can recover from it. It's a process. It begins with suspicion or doubt. I don't know if this will work. Okay. Then you make a decision. Okay, let me try it. Then you take some action and you reach out to people like us. And then we start the process of recovery and you'll get results. Now, see, COVID was actually a boon because still COVID, even among the privileged and the educated and all that, it was still a stigma to go to a rehab or to go and see. COVID was great because now you don't have to go to a clinic and see who will see me in the waiting room and why will they think that I am here. And I'm one of the guys that pioneered HBR, home based recovery or rehab to you. And when COVID happened, my rehab was closed. Like people were calling me, and I started to. Till today, 90% of my work is online. I do my sessions on Zoom. I do my sessions on WhatsApp calls, and maybe about 10% of my clients say, "No, no, I do want it." Okay, then you fly me to your destination. I'll do it in your home for you do about a week of intensive therapy and then online. So if you like, you can put my website and people can click there.
I will.
I do a free assessment, by the way. My first assessment, I don't even charge. People, what are you not charging? It's your time. You know what? I'm 64. I'm semi-retired, and I don't want to charge people unless they become my patient. My colleagues don't like that, but that's the way I do it.
So, I have asked everything that I thought would be important for this conversation. Is there anything that you feel is left out and would want to add to this?
Yes, just like there is the organization called Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, Nicotine Anonymous, Marijuana Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, for the person that has the problem, there is a support system for the families. So for
Okay.
Alcoholics Anonymous, for the alcoholics, there's Al Anon for families and friends, where they get together, they have a meeting, they support each other. They say, I understand your pain. My husband, my father, my brother, my son, my child was like this. And Naranon, Gamanon, the support system is there for the families. And family, even if your loved one does not respond and continues to drink and maybe dies of alcoholism, you can get well because the drinking of the alcoholic makes the family members anxious, depressed, neurotic,
Yeah.
blaming themselves, full of guilt and shame and fear and remorse. Remember the three C's. You didn't cause this. You can't control it and you can't cure it, but you can definitely get help for yourself. So there is hope. It's 1000% treatable. And if they won't get the treatment, you take the treatment and you become mentally and emotionally sound.
Thank you so much, Roy, for your time. And I really enjoyed this conversation. It was very, very informative. And I really hope that all the listeners would pay attention to every bit of detail that you have shared and make use of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.